Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. Joining me today in the CNC is Karen.
Hello, everybody.
And Lou.
Good morning, everyone, or whatever time it is you're listening to this.
And I am Jesse, standing between the dark and light, because I have been summoned and I come. Today...
What?
Okay.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes. Oh,
I'm the worst.
Are we 12-year-old boys? Yes.
Yes, I am.
All alone in the night, while investigating strange readings on a Star Fury patrol, Sheridan is kidnapped by aliens. General Haig makes an unofficial visit to the station, and Delenn is called before the Grey Council in response to her recent transformations. This was originally aired February 15th, 1995. It is the 11th episode of the second season. And I was talking before we get record. I think there's 3 storylines. One's meh, one's, oh, that's interesting, and one I found pretty fascinating. So let's start with you, Lou. Quick thoughts.
Yeah, pretty well echo everything you said. It was great to see Robert Foxworth, who I've always liked since the failed pilot for the Quester tapes. Great movie. If anybody's old enough to remember that, he played an android, which was an interesting premise for a series idea, especially back then. That was post Star Trek. It was one of Gene Roddenberry's failed pilots. So he's got that gravitas, and I enjoy seeing him. The Delenn storyline was interesting. The Sheridan storyline was okay. So overall, it was not a bad episode and a definite step up from Gropos.
Karen?
Okay, yeah, I really like this episode. One of the things I really like about it, not just Robert Farnsworth, who's awesome, Foxworth, sorry. I really enjoyed that we got quite a bit more of the story. Some stuff that was like, oh, to me at least. And that's a good thing. I mean, that's one of my favorite things is when we get an episode that not only advances the story, but it's something that is kind of a pleasant surprise as well. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you about this one, especially as we talked about last episode, the thought that we had sold season 2 as something that was considerably better than season 1, but there have been a couple of mediocre episodes in season 2, right?
I have to say, though, even the duds, and I'm putting air quotes around it, of this season are still better than season 1. I mean, I am enjoying season 2 much more than season 1. Not that I hated season 1.
Yeah.
But, it suffers from that first season syndrome of just not being as good as the other seasons. So I think that they've made a lot of improvements in season 2. And I really love how things are coming together.
I'm going to go off on a slight tangent.
Oh, goody.
Yes.
Love tangents.
So beware, listeners, if you want to jump ahead for a few minutes, go. But so I was sharing before we recorded, I was visiting my brother yesterday and or day before, Friday. And he said the problem with Babylon 5, he said, if someone tells you, well, I don't like Star Trek, you can pick an episode, watch this, tell me you don't like it. And I said, City of the Edge of Forever? He goes, yeah, that
Sure.
would be one I'd pick.
Mm-hmm.
He
Or
said,
the Trouble with Tribbles is a good one.
Right.
It's a one-off, So,
right.
Anyway.
Next Generation. You could pick one.
Inner Light.
Inner Light would be
that's exactly what I thought.
Yep.
He said, you can't do that with Babylon 5. it's like saying you're really going to love this novel, but I can't pull chapter 6 and here read this.
Right.
I mean, and so I thought that was it. So anyway, by the way,
yeah, that's one of the things you can't start with season 2 of Babylon 5.
Do you agree with that, Jesse?
Yeah, I do. That's why I was going to curious if you guys. I mean, you can. There are episodes in the future that we have a couple of standalone episodes that you could give people to watch. But even like Babylon, like Doctor Who, you can show them Blink, right? And whether they like Doctor Who, oh, that's an interesting episode.
It's a creepy as F episode, is what it is.
Yeah. Quiet.
Yes, I know.
I know.
Yeah, Lou is not a Doctor Who fan.
Just so you know, Blink is the one with the angels that move if you don't. Okay.
Yep, I've seen that episode. And it's a trope that's been used in horror films quite a bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and by the way, Lou, every time I see the Doctor being uncaring and having people die, I think of you.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if I should.
No, you should be happy. I think that's a fair. Yeah. Anyway, we need to do a whole episode of just
thoughts on Lou's
Doctor Who.
Yeah. I'm sure he would hate my doctor the most because Doctor number 4 was just the worst when it came to personal interaction. So anyway. Lou, you asked me, do you agree with that Babylon 5 is not something you could just pick an episode and try to show people they'd like?
So far, I would say I would have to agree with that because the universe is different than any other show that I've watched so far. It'd be kind of like even with Farscape, you could, like, I have favorite episodes in Farscape, but you have to know the universe, and it would have to be like City on the Edge of Forever is a great choice because it takes place on Earth, so you don't have to know all the Star Trek universe stuff. But I don't know if there's an episode in this series or even Farscape that you could watch this and say, yeah, you'll get into it because it's so good. Because Farscape's got the Muppets, and that takes a while to get used to. Babylon 5's got the hair. So
I would kind of say maybe Out of Their Minds would be a decent episode of Farscape because it's not really part of the main arc, the one where they change bodies.
I don't remember that episode. Out of Their Minds.
Yeah.
Is that a first season or a second season?
Is it? Hold on. Season 2, episode 9. They change bodies. You don't remember that one? Like John looks down at his boobs, and because he goes into Aaron, and
you're talking Farscape. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Farscape. I said Farscape. No. I said Farscape.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I was locked into Babylon 5.
Yeah, that would be one that I might pull out to show someone. But yeah, it would be hard to do that. And I can't imagine, at least so far, pulling an episode out of Babylon 5. I'm so sorry for that jog into Farscape.
No.
That's cool.
That's why I said this was a tangent. We talked, and that was one of the things we discussed too, is like he's never gotten into Farscape. And he says, I've watched a few episodes, and I said, I remember when Wendy from Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV had heard I'd never watched Supernatural. She said, okay, here are the 4 episodes you can skip on season 1, and kind of get you caught up. And I said, the beautiful thing about Farscape is once you're into it, Rigel becomes a puppet, and he's just a character.
Yep.
I said, this is Pilot becomes a character. I said, but yes, that's another one that, it's hard to do. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
I think that holds true for Fringe as well. But and that's based on Earth, and it still would be hard to say, okay, here's the episode. Like I would pick the Peter episode, but you'd have to have the context of the characters to get the full impact of that. But yeah,
just not Marionette. That would be the one I would say. Do not watch because you won't be interested in Fringe.
Well, and I often talk about that. I think Fringe, is and I know this isn't current, but I think it's one of the more recent / modern shows that did the best of combining individual episodes with the over arc.
Agreed.
I think they were really good at that. The new Quantum Leap is starting to build something, but it's too early. And I would maybe make the argument that the overall arc is better than the little individual jumps.
Yep.
But it has the potential, I think, partly because of the writing seems to be getting there, and the cast absolutely has the chops to pull out a lot of things. There is, from my perspective, they haven't had a weak regular character, including adding Al's daughter, spoilers, into a reoccurring cast is just, I think, pretty good.
Yeah. The only thing that I'm worried about with that show is the last episode. She's basically told everybody you can't talk about anything because then everybody else will know, because it reverberates through time. And I'm going, oh, great. So basically, we're not going to find out what's going on.
Yeah. So you wonder how it's going to do.
Yeah.
Which is a good segue back to, we will talk about this, but we got a surprise reveal at the end of this episode in Babylon 5. So, all right, let's get through the, we'll eat our vegetables first. Sheridan
I like vegetables, so
there. All right, let's eat our consomme soup, maybe.
Sure.
Sure. The appetizer. So they know there's some kind of things happening out in space. They know they're not the Raiders because that's a season 1 problem. He almost says it that way, like, oh, we know it's not the Raiders because, hey, we've given up that storyline. And Sheridan decides he's got to go out. I love the idea he talked about flight pay, because I remember, I think it was Mitchell's book on space that one of the subplots were astronauts had to fly so often to be able to keep flight pay. I guess flight pay is the version of like overtime or a shift differential. You got more money if you spend so many hours in the air. And if you didn't spend that time in the air, then it was basically a pay cut. So I thought that was kind of a nice thing. I love that Ivanova, Susan's like rolling her eyes, like, look, we really have crap to do. And then I think in a really bad show of a decision making, which makes him human, oh, my boss is coming to visit. I won't cancel this. I'm still going to go out because I'm sure I have time to finish this TV show and still get the house straight before my company is coming over.
There was a lot of that in this episode of like, you just know what's going to happen based on what the character's doing. The dude makes a bet.
Yeah.
So he's going to die.
Sheridan says nothing. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Right. Yeah. The other guy dies. I mean, out in space, and then he gets captured. And they're killing themselves here.
So, John ends up getting captured. He is held prisoner, has to kind of do a mini arena from Star Trek.
Did you hear that music in the background when he was fighting?
Yes.
The Kirk fight music? Yeah, me too.
Yes, I did too. Yes, gosh. So he ends up escaping, and according to Lurker's Guide to the Babylon 5, we will never hear about this race again. That isn't a spoiler. JMS flat says we're never hearing from this race again. So
Stripes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so if our listeners think I've spoiled something, I apologize. All right, Karen.
I'm good.
Talk about this little storyline.
Okay, so I love that there's an excuse for him to go out instead of just, I want to be a cowboy. Because this is at least something that makes sense to me, that he's got to go out. And like in our world, pilots have to fly every so many years, you know what I mean, in order to keep their license. So, it made sense to me that, I've got to go out every once in a while to, keep my license or whatever. And that's good, instead of, I need to get in a plane. And I thought it was kind of funny, especially based on what happened in the last couple of minutes, that he thought he could go out on this run, not knowing what was going to happen, and be back in time for he needed to be there for this visit. So there was connections to the main storyline in there. But I also liked that it was something a little different, that they have kind of improved on the captain goes out into space thing that they've been doing. Because we mentioned several times, why does Sinclair think he has to go out on all these missions on a ship and, be in danger, have people shooting at him? And at least, Sheridan has an excuse. It's more believable. I also liked the fact that he now is having this new trauma of, he was tortured, experimented upon something. He has some scarring on his face. He's got a raw trauma. I know he was in war and he probably has some PTSD from that, but now it's something that he's going to live with in the present. And, that makes for a decent storyline as well. I don't know if that's going to come up again. Don't say anything, but if they did bring that back in, it would be refreshing to see.
All right, Lou.
This was okay, I guess. But it just felt like filler. Like I don't even know why they had to have Sheridan off stage, so to speak, from the station. I didn't really understand I just didn't understand the purpose of the storyline, because the race, like you said, is a one-off race. It doesn't tie into any of the previous mythology of the show. So I was kind of hoping that this race would have been something adjunct to the Shadow race or something like that, but there was nothing there. So I mean, yes, space is big and there can be other races and that, but from a dramatic storytelling device, I just don't think that this storyline was utilized properly to build either something with the character or the mythology of the show. So I really just sort of cruised through it and just kept waiting for it to go back to the other storylines, which were much more interesting for me. So yeah, I didn't really care for this storyline. It's the weak part of the episode for me. And if it could have maybe done something, like there was the stuff with Kosh, which was interesting, but again, because we don't know, how the Vorlons, what they're all about, it's still rather opaque at this point. So it's basically, he's just saying, you're the man, you've always been here. Like, okay, what does that mean? So yeah, I didn't hate it. Like, I thought Bruce Boxleitner did a good job with what he was given, but yeah, I was not sad to see that storyline end, for sure.
Yeah, and this is our second vision/dream, right? Like, and so that was fun. We get to see a lot of imaging of, Claudia gets to dress up in different gear. They talk about, she pushes her finger to her lips, says shh, and then she's got a raven on her shoulder, and do you know who I am? He sees another Sheridan. I'm going through this on Lurker's Guide. Then we see Garibaldi having maybe a dove on his shoulder. The man is in between, is searching for you. Sheridan now is out of uniform. Then we see it almost like it's like a Psi Corps badge. Ivanova Stilvade, you are the hand. And then Kosh says, why are you here? And we were never away. For the first time, your mind is quiet enough to hear us. And you've always been here, right? So there's a lot of things here that I think, like, this isn't one of those where I go, rubbing my hands together. I think this is one of those where I talk about when I do House of the Dragon, I don't want to have to do a lot of homework to enjoy a show.
Mm-hmm.
And this feels a little like homework. Thoughts on his dream? And I'll go with you first, Lou.
It was a lot of stuff that, because you have no context, it's like, is this important? Like, I assume that they're showing this to me for some reason, but I'm trying to parse it together. It's got Susan and Garibaldi are there, and Kosh, but why he's seeing these things? It's not that clear to me. I was kind of thinking of The Empire Strikes Back when Luke goes into the Force tree. It was kind of that kind of imagery. So, but I assume that the man in between is searching for you. Is that a Sinclair reference? Because he's time jumping. So I don't know if that's what that's all about. So it would be interesting if I knew what part of I was supposed to be paying attention to, but it just came off like a fever dream, and I don't really know the importance of it. So,
yeah, Karen,
I gotta say, this is the part of the episode that was interesting yet confusing. Like Lou said, we don't know what's coming, so I'm completely in the dark about this vision. And there was a point where I was like, okay, what's happening here? Let me analyze it. And then I was like, okay, I'm too tired. My brain hurts. It was just very confusing to me. But I'd like to, once we're a ways into this and we kind of get what's happening, I'd like to go back and rewatch that, because I think it would be more interesting. Because right now it was just like, okay, very strange, esoteric, out there kind of scenes. I think there were two, right?
Yeah.
And I like when they bring Kosh in, because to me that means we're seeing more of that war arc storyline, and he's very interesting as a character. So I understood him being taken and experimented on and maybe having a vision, but when the vision came, I was like, okay, whatever. I can't analyze it because I feel like I don't have enough context.
What I do find interesting, and this is across border, right? The trope of if this isn't clear, and once again, not to spoil, but if you didn't catch this is Kosh sending him a message.
Okay.
This is Kosh sending him a message.
So it's not a vision so much, it is a projection?
Yes, from Kosh.
Okay. No, that doesn't spoil anything for me,
yeah.
to be honest.
So, but sometimes can you just tell me the answer? Right? Like, do you have to word it in visions and dreams? It's like, hey, I'm trying to think, if you do X, bad things are going to happen, right? Yeah, I'm just throwing you right in there. This is going to be bad for you. Would be nice to know versus, oh, I don't know what happened. And so, anyway, Lou, any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I think you've both said it pretty well. It would be nice to know what parts of that dream we're supposed to glom onto, and whether we have to glom onto anything at all. I guess is where I'm standing.
Yeah, and I will tell you once again, you shouldn't have to do homework, but one of the really nice things that the kind people at Lurker's Guide have done a really good job of, they do follow up and will say, oh, remember when this happened?
Mm-hmm.
This is what, this is connecting to that. So we'll keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. And I applaud people that have the determination to do things like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, there's times when you go, oh, that was interesting, versus, I'm just ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have that sometimes where I just don't want to think that hard. So yeah.
That was my thing, as I was just like, I'm tired, my shoulder hurts, I don't want to analyze this. And you'll have to tell us when the Lurker's Guide gives us that information so that we can look at it.
All right. So Delenn is summoned. And she, I guess this is, she likes to travel in her personal flyer as well, versus, I guess, a big Minbari ship. Maybe it's just so she can be alone. Delenn is planning to go by himself. She says goodbye to Lanier. Lanier says, hold up, cuz I'm going with you. And they go together, and stuff happens with the Great Council. Karen, I'll let you go first. All is free.
Okay, so we knew that she was gonna get called on the carpet for this. I can't remember the name of the guy that replaced her. It's the guy from the episode where they threw the funeral for the war hero. What's his name? Can you tell me?
I'm pulling it really quick. It is Naroon. Naroon.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so that means more war people on the council than the other sects, castes. And I really got the feeling here, which is, again, another story pushing forward with the story. The fact that they're still kind of on fire about not finishing the war with the humans. And I feel like maybe this was a calculated thing that they did so that they could go back and finish it up. And of course, that would mean extermination. But part of me thinks that that's going to be part of the big war that's coming. And part of me thinks there's going to be way more to it. And again, I'm just, taking a guess here. I have a feeling that at least part of my guess will be right. I do feel like it's kind of an allusion to, racism is bad because, she's become a little more human, but we know from Sinclair that the humans and the Minbari are inextricably linked. So the fact that they're just doing it because she looks more human, again, that's kind of the racism is bad message here, which I like. Just so you listeners know, I like when they bury real world messages in episodes. Again, I think we're going to be, kind of throwing shade during this episode to someone, but I like it. I get where they're coming from. I can see what's going to happen. Now, Delenn doesn't have as much power, but they're leaving her on Babylon 5, which says to me they don't think Babylon 5 is going to play any kind of a part. It's inconsequential. So let's put her there. Who cares? And I think that's a mistake because she's going to have all these allies that will also see what's happening with the Minbari. And even though the Narn and the Centauri are in their own thing, I have a feeling that the war is going to become this big, everybody's involved kind of thing. And Delenn being on Babylon 5 gives her access to all these other races that she might be able to bring on board. So I think, number one, it's a mistake. Number two, having the war more war people on the council is bad. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? And I love the interaction between Lanier and Delenn, the fact that he's ride or die with her. And that's very cool because we saw that Delenn also had mentors. And so now that she's, passing it down to Lanier, she's including him. He's going to be a good sounding board and probably, someone who can bolster her up a little bit. So there was a lot of stuff in the storyline that I think was alluded to without them coming out and saying it.
Yes, the what made me think of it is the one of the, at least if you're at all went to Sunday school, the book of Ruth, where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be married. May the Lord deal with me, so it ever be severely, if ever death separates you and me. If even death separates you and me. I thought of that when I heard him saying that, and in poker terms, I'm all in.
Yep.
And I love your statement, ride or die. It
Yep.
is very thoughtful. And it really, once again, one of the true beauties of Babylon 5 to me is seeing Will Robinson get to show such diversity, right? That, and obviously, famous for Twilight Zone episodes and, but to have him have a chance to show such complexity is really nice.
I don't see Will Robinson in his character. He's very diverse, and I love that about him.
Yeah. All right, Lou, your turn.
Yeah, I agree with what Karen said. I really did like the relationship between Delenn and Lanier. He's been consistently cool, and every time he shows up, and the difference between him and say Franklin is establishing a character that you can learn to like, and whatever faults he has are more through inexperience and naivete than personal biases or whatever. So I really like him. He kind of comes off as like a kung fu David Qui-Gon Chain like character. I know he's very zen, and he's on his path, and he will do whatever he feels necessary to accomplish his goals. And he's very loyal to Delenn, and she's very lucky to have him because I don't think she's always treated him properly or appropriately. And it was nice to see her eyes kind of opened in this episode as to his true character. And I love the fact that he went with her and stood by her, which usually in these kind of situations, you sort of usually walk the plank on your own, but he was there to be with her. So that was really great to see. That's a nice step forward in their relationship that hasn't really been shown in previous episodes. But I take it more as a mother-son kind of relationship or friends. I don't see any romantic vibes in that relationship at all. So I'm not shipping them. I don't see that happening. But he's just he's just a very honorable guy, and he has some kung fu moves. So yeah, he's a good guy to have in your corner because he's the type of person that people will look at and dismiss, and those are the types of people that are worth gold to have in your back pocket. So I really like that. And Karen was right on the money with the whole Grey Council stuff. I was a little confused about was it Naroon? Because he seemed to have come to an understanding with Sheridan at the end of their episode, like a warrior to warrior. So I would have thought that his mindset would have been a little more open, whereas in this episode he seems to have gone right back to his warrior ways. And it's interesting that this this unbalancing of the Grey Council is giving the Warriors a slim margin is very, real world situation going on in your country again. So that's the timing of that was rather interesting for this episode, and what's going on in the house is interesting to watch. And I don't know how that's going to play out in future episodes, but it'll be interesting to see. I don't know how the Warriors interact with the other two casts and the Minbari Society. So they would have to turn some of these people to get through their whatever agenda they have. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I just thought it was a very interesting storyline, and it was a storyline that you could see was paying off in expanding the mythology of the Babylon 5 universe and furthering the storyline. So I appreciated it on all aspects, character and mythology.
One thing I'd like to see with this storyline is, what is the populace thinking? Because all we've seen is like the Grey Council and ambassadors and stuff like that. And how does Sinclair and his Rangers, how did they tie into everything? My thought is that there's a part of the population that is kind of egging on this warrior caste. And again, it's reflective of our society that there's a lot of people in the populace that kind of help to boost up the folks that maybe you don't want to be in power. And what is there a part of the populace that is, we have the warrior caste, which we know will be in his corner, but is there a part of the other caste that maybe are like, maybe we shouldn't have ended the war, that might be behind him on the council? Because there has to be some reason why they decided to unbalance the council, and I want to see where that goes. So again, sorry, but
no, that was all great stuff. Yeah, I do love the whole mentioning about kung fu, right? Because he is in a monastery. He talks about that. He does do the hook 'em horns anytime he's being he has his little finger, his pointing finger. Yeah, he has that ready. This is my theory only, is I think, because I'm based on what Naroon says, is, and I don't remember how members of the Grey Council, is this a general population voting or whatever, but you do see Delenn is shocked that they have now, it's 4-3-2, that, so now then the warrior caste only has to get one other person to join them and they have a majority, versus before 3-3-3, it was equal. He mentioned how shocked he was now that he has given, top secret clearance of the reason why they dropped the war. So in my mind, continuity is whatever peace he made with Sheridan, now that he knows what happened, because some mystical, we're supposed to be humans, it's ripped off any of that healing, and now the scar is fresh for him.
That makes a lot of sense.
How dare they? We could have won. And the justification of, you say there is a war coming, then why wouldn't we be stronger in the warrior caste? Won't we have to do the fighting? Once again, sounds like it makes a little sense, right? Why are you against people having to prove who they are to vote? I mean, why should you be against that? It's only when you get into the nuance. I promise we're not going to there, listeners. You go, wait a minute, it's a little more deeper than you say. So I do know, based on behind the scenes, that this actor was supposed to be a one and done, and they loved him so much. That's why when they needed this again, they brought him back.
He's really good. I like him.
Yeah. And I do think you guys talked about it. They are like, fine, Delenn, go stay over in Babylon 5. We don't care. Play with your little toys. Um, and I think she's happy with that decision, but I think she is concerned overall with the direction her world is heading.
Plus, she's out of the
Right.
loop now. She doesn't know
Right.
what they're doing. So
Yeah. So
She's as satisfied as she can be
yeah.
being thrown off the Great Council.
yeah, because
Yes.
they could have taken her away from Babylon 5 too.
Right.
So
Right.
she's,
Right.
yeah.
So there is I did love the scene where she turns badass and warns the other race, okay, you've been here before. You know how this goes. Perhaps you want to rethink what you're thinking. So that was a really nice scene with her.
I like that a lot with the Streebs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the Streebs, I don't know if that was an in-joke, but they looked like your classic bug-eyed alien. So I assume that was an in-joke, or
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was
that
probably
part
the
of
best
it, that was
part of
fun.
that whole
Yes,
thing.
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And we find out that Sheridan talks a little Narn, right? Yeah, he's obviously, like many modern sailors, you end up picking up words at different ports. Mostly like, yes, can I have another round? And yes, close out my tab.
Where's the bathroom?
Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Or
okay.
the library, if you know Spanish.
Yes.
Biblioteca. I mean, that's the word you have to learn.
All right. The last thing is the Admiral is here. General. Turns out he's the Joint Chiefs of Staff, so that means he's very high up. And we find out that our beloved, I'm so excited that there's fresh fruits and vegetables, and everyone has actually been sent to spy on everyone in Babylon 5. Cute little, Bruce Boxleiter has actually been a spy. Karen, we know how much you adore Bruce. What did you think about this reveal? And I will tell you, I love his performance, where he's like, okay, we're alone. Why the hell have you been leaving me out to dry? So please share.
It is very Scarecrow and Mrs. King. That's what I gotta say. Him being a spy, I'm all in. I think it's more a take the temperature of Babylon 5 thing than just, report back with every little thing. I think the fact that they want to know how on the side of good they think they want Babylon 5 to be. And again, I think this ties into the whole arc of something's going to go down. We know that the new president, is maybe in bed with the wrong people, and that's why he was installed. We already kind of get the feeling that the Psi Corps is involved in all this. So the fact that they already suspect this was really a good reveal. And I loved Bruce Boxleitner's performance all over this episode. I think he was good. Him being tortured, he had a really good reaction to that. The fighting was good. And then in this episode, where at the end of the episode, they're alone, the dude is like, hey, how do you like the fruit? I mean, they're just talking about nothing. And then all of a sudden he's like, okay, there's no bugs, so let's talk about it. And Bruce was like, I'm going to say Bruce, but it's Sheridan. How come you left me out here for 3 months? I mean, he's really upset that they haven't checked in with him yet, because he has a good idea about what's going on in Babylon 5. And I think he feels like it's important for his allies to know what's going on. And it also sheds a lot of light on how he kind of jumped into these relationships with the higher ups, that he's immediately kind of on Garibaldi's side. And I think that was so he could get to know him better. I also have a question. It's a little bit of a side note. Why is Franklin in on all these decisions? Garibaldi and Ivanova, I get. Why do they call Franklin in to ask him what his opinion is? Is he part of the main hierarchy of the crew? What is that all about? Was Bones in on all those? Was Beverly Crusher in on? I don't remember the doctor of a space station or ship or whatever being so in with the captain, the chief of security, and the number 2. Dude, those are important roles. But then let's pull Franklin in, even though he's done some really questionable things and we're not sure where he stands on people. What is that about? Is it just because he's a main character on the show? So that takes me out of it a little bit. But I do like that, he's got them on his side, and then he goes to talk to this dude that has helped to get him installed. And I like that they chose him for a reason, because he seemed like a hard ass, but he could also still kind of fly under the radar. And I think that blew my mind. It really did. It surprised me a lot, but it also made some other things make sense. The whole Garibaldi thing. Because I was thinking, okay, why is he so friendly with them already? Instead of being, getting to know him on a professional level, he's like, hey, let's go have a drink. So that makes sense a lot more, that he's really kind of, pulled them in. And I think it's because he needs to get to know them on a deeper level. So very cool.
Very nice. Lou, how about you?
I love the reveal, and I'm very interested to see where this goes forward. I'm not as nearly as high as Karen on the execution of it, though. It felt almost like a retcon to me. There was no foreshadowing of this. Now, you could argue that he's undercover for 6 months, blah, blah, blah. But it just would have been nice to maybe have a tease here and there that he was up to something else beyond what we saw in the show, though it does explain why he's in the position that he is in, because it's been brought up several times. Why would they put somebody like you in this position? So you could argue that that's the foreshadowing that we were given for the reveal. So I think maybe I've just talked myself around on that a bit, but I didn't see it in his activities. So sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say the only time is there is a couple times where, like he said, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why I should be out in space. What am I doing? So I think that could be retroactively, you could see, oh, maybe that's what he's second guessing, is that he took this instead of, when he could be doing something more for, more just literal, more almost open. I agree. And I do think and I wonder if that's what they were trying to do, is to truly have you. It's not a drop the jaw moment for me, because this is like the 4th time I've watched Babylon 5, but I do remember at the time going, where the hell did that come from? So I think you're not, I don't think you're wrong for that, Lou, at all. It is just, I think it's interesting that we both like the reveal, but is this necessarily, the execution? I think that's really open to debate.
Yeah, because the problem is we've seen so many other shows do this kind of thing, and it's just a little more elegant, I guess. Like the whole Sinclair on being a specimen on the spaceships. Seen that storyline done on even like the original Star Trek pilot Menagerie, like the Cage. It was that was done better than I thought that was what was done in this episode. So it's I love the reveal. I just felt it was a little out of left field, and people will argue, well, that's the kind of show Babylon 5 is, and this is the way they do these things, and then I guess I'll get used to it. But I can't help be referencing other shows where I've seen this done, and it just felt a little more elegant, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It's just a little clunky to me, but
okay. I think that's a fair
and I totally agree with Karen on Franklin. Like I just don't see why they would bring him in. He's shown himself to go off the ranch so many times that how can you trust him with this knowledge?
But have they done that on other shows, that the doctor is part of the main decision making? I'm just trying to look back, and I can't remember that.
Yeah.
So
not that I know.
What they specifically in the original Star Trek, right? The idea was McCoy and Spock were supposed to be two sides of Kirk, the logic side and the emotional side.
Yep.
Right? Thinking with your heart, thinking with your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so
but when a big decision had to be made, did they pull Bones in to?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all.
If it was ship business, they did. But if it was something like this vast higher up thing, I mean, there was that episode like the Enterprise incident. Nobody on the crew knew that Kirk had orders to go over across the neutral zone, right? Like they didn't bring anybody in on that. So, but it's a different set of circumstances. But there's a lot of times that they would, if there was that kind of command decision stuff, it would just be Kirk and Spock. It wouldn't be McCoy.
So it kind of puzzles. I puzzle a little bit over that. And I think a lot of it is because we're just not loving Franklin right now.
Yep.
I don't want him involved in these decisions. He's not reliable.
I would have chosen Delenn over Franklin myself.
Right?
But,
right?
Yeah. But,
so the only thing I could think is, and I told you the story, right, about you can't add real world logic in it because then it breaks the rule, right? Like, okay, he's one of the leads. We need this. Yeah. So I'm assuming that in Earth Force, he's the highest ranking member of the medical, that theory. So and because that means all the other doctors, the technicians, the nurses, the PAs, all those report up to him in the chain of command. So let's make that argument that he is in charge of all the the medical personnel.
So you're saying like it's based on rank?
Yeah,
that he's pulled in.
That's Yeah.
Another possibility is the difference between the starships and whatnot. They're closed environments, and you're only dealing with personnel from your organization. Whereas on Babylon 5, it's an open culture kind of thing. So that there's going to be a lot of people outside of the Babylon 5 team that are going to be coming through. And that includes the sick bay, so he might be hearing stuff that would be useful to the command structure. So that's an argument.
It's a reach.
But because it's an open environment, I think that the dynamics are a bit different. So
it's just weird.
And I think that what I think would have made more sense, right, is if your version of the chief petty officer.
Yep.
Right? Like you've got your second in command, you've got your head of security, and then you would think about what's your top rated enlisted person. And we don't have that role in this show. But yeah,
that fighter pilot.
Keffer, whatever.
Yeah. Keffer, but because I'm thinking if I was doing a staff meeting, so I guess he's part of senior staff.
Yeah.
So that's why he's involved in it.
Yeah, there should be like a chief engineer or something. I'm surprised they don't have that role because
they've mentioned her.
They got to fix that water pipe.
Exactly. They've mentioned her a couple times, but I think maybe we've seen her once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, why don't they make again, it's done, it's over with, so they can't go back. But I just find it very weird. And I hate going off on this, but
yeah, they just probably didn't want to replicate what they've seen in other shows in that aspect, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think Franklin has been served poorly. We've kind of beat up on him a lot. I did like the little baseball joke, which is similar to, for those of you who follow baseball, right? Coors Field, the Colorado Rockies, has the same thing, right? Because they play in Denver, the altitude is a little it's mile high, so it is a little bit easier to hit home runs there.
Sure.
And for people who are not follow baseball, one of the unique aspects of baseball is there is no universal measurements as far as the outfield. The infield is the same thing, but the outfield, you can have different spaces. So you can have either a pitcher's park where it is really hard to hit a home run, or it could be a hitter's park where there is a sweet spot where if you hit something a little bit, it's much easier to put it out of the park. So, but I did love that we still have baseball, and there's the World Series, and we're betting. It did seem Sheridan was very unhappy to lose this guy, and there was a little bit of guilt there that, if I had not gone on this run, he'd still be alive. So, yeah.
He might still be alive.
Yeah, might be, yes.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the episode?
I'm interested to see where it goes next. That when they stopped that at the end of the episode, I go, no, don't stop there. I want to see the next scene. I want to see him talking to everybody, but I don't know if they're going to do that. I doubt if they'll do that next episode, but yeah, it was a nice device to get me interested to want to watch the next episode. That's true. I almost started, I get just maybe a little peek. I said, no, I better not, because I don't want to ruin it. So we're spoiling myself before we do this recording.
There's the autoplay thing, right? Yeah. And it's so difficult to hit the back button sometimes. And this episode was definitely a case of, I really don't want to. I want to sit here and binge it. It's not like that every week, but this week I wanted to see what happened next.
Yeah, and I love the fact, one of the things that really frustrates me is if the writers do not do a good job of explaining why a character is not telling another character something. Because if you go, well, if they just talk to each other, we're going to wrap this up in 10 minutes. So since we can't wrap it up in 10 minutes, I have to come up some kind of weird reason why people don't talk. I love the fact that the general says, all right, now that they've proved their loyalty, you've got the option. Do you include them in this? And therefore, do you reward their loyalty by putting them, possibly their career, in danger? Right? And so I like how he said, though I do, I wonder if I'm in that situation, I'm like, well, of course I'm going to say yes, because now I'm going to have to walk away wondering what the hell's going on, so and it is one of those things, and you can't unhear it. Like so I thought that I was really happy to see him immediately. Okay, let's have a discussion. Let me talk about this.
Subverting that poor communication kills trope, which is literally the name of that trope. That is so overused in the books that I read. I'm like, why don't you just tell him? That's one of the things that happens and it's not just romance books. It's in sci-fi, it's in fantasy, it's everywhere. So
the thing I really find interesting about this reveal too is for Garibaldi, he's working now with two secret organizations, right? So I'm wondering, it'll be interesting to see how he juggles those two loyalties. And
you wonder, because now then I could see Garibaldi going, hey, Jeff, I have something I can't tell you, but I think you need to know.
Let's play charades.
Will you give me permission to add Captain Sheridan into this?
Right.
So that I can ask him if I can tell you what I think you need to know, right? Like
exactly,
yeah. That is actually, I had not thought of that, and I now cannot unthink of that. Oh, and
now he's torn between two captains.
Yes,
poor Garibaldi. Yeah. And is that going to deepen his character, which I love because that character is awesome.
Yeah, it is. All right. So I'll go, any other final thoughts before we go to ratings?
Nope.
I'm good.
All right. So I'm going to give this 7.5. It is, if I was giving this each 3 storylines, I think, Delenn would get a 10. I think the Sheridan reveal would get a good 8, and then the other one maybe a 4 or 5. So I didn't do the math, but I'm thinking altogether, this is a solid C, maybe, a 70, 78 or 79, not quite a B, but it's pretty good. Lou, how about you?
I'm right there with you. I would give this a 7. You didn't say 7.5 what though?
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. 7.5. Oh wow. 7.5. I'm gonna steal Karen. Kirk fight songs. Yes.
Yep. Okay. I'm right there with you. I thought the Sheridan storyline was could have been used for much greater effect than what it was in this episode. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 jamming devices.
Nice. Karen?
On the back of his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go just a little higher. And it's mostly
Bruce Boxleitner.
Yes, it's because of Bruce Boxleitner. I love where this goes because I'm used to seeing him in this kind of role. Less captain, more spy. So if they merge those two together, well, I am loving it. And on that vein, I'm going to give it 8 Lee Stetsons, which was Scarecrow's real name on Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Nice. Very nice. All right. So do we have some feedback? Karen?
Yeah, you sent me something, right?
Yes, I did.
Hold on a minute. I gotta find it. I'm the worst. Sorry.
That's okay. Our editor does a really good job of making us not look foolish.
Right. I don't see it. Where am I? Oh, here we go. Okay. And this is from Texas and the Shock. JMS, did we find out whether she's a she or a he?
We do not. They have not answered that. So please let us know that.
Right. JMS has a term for certain episodes. He calls them pretty boxes. You start off thinking it's one thing, but as you open the box, you'll find it's exactly something else. Actually, something else. Sorry. Though he was referring to a 3rd season episode when he gave that description, it also applies to this one. JMS loves pretty boxes. So Sheridan is feeling a bit cooped up and wants to get out and stretch his legs, so to speak. This could never go wrong, could it? Maybe under normal circumstances, but he just has to say what could go wrong. That's just as bad as him saying they hopefully won't have to use that wonderfully powerful new defense grid. John, you need to stop doing this. So he goes out, gets abducted by a never before seen and never to be seen again alien race, where he meets the Ikaran war machine disguised as a Narn. And then he has a really interesting dream and sees Kosh. The Vorlon seems to be a bit more active lately. Is something about to happen? But the crew, with some called-in help, the Agamemnon's back. Oh, that's one thing. This is my aside. I wish we would have seen just a little zoom of the captain of the Agamemnon. That would have been cool. I mean, but at least they mentioned him.
Yes.
Pull off a rescue and get the captain home safe and sound. In the meantime, Delenn has been kicked off the Great Council and replaced by Naroon. Naroon was supposed to be a one-off character, but JMS was so impressed by John Vickery's performance that he decided to bring the character back. But Naroon has some things to say. Now, he was absolutely incredulous when he learned the real reason they surrendered the Battle of the Line, and for her disregarding the Council of the Nine. And I'm sure a little payback for her pulling rank on him last year. He sends her back to Babylon 5 where they won't have to see her anymore. After all that, we finally start to see some action on the Earth front. General Haig is beginning to move against President Clark, and he needs Sheridan's help. For now, it just looks like things like information gathering, and Sheridan brings the rest of the command staff in on it. We've had hints about how Sheridan's record is perceived before. If you recall, Bester mentioned it and seemed to have expected more cooperation from Sheridan than he got. That begs the question, how long before the rest of Clark's people begin to realize Sheridan's not as in their camp as they thought? And what's he likely to do when he thinks something is a threat? Dun, dun, dun. That's all for now. Take care. This is the Texas and the Shock signing off.
Very nice. Yeah, thank you. That was always, we love reading your email. Any thoughts? And then Lou, do we have any on our YouTube page?
We do. I put out 2 episodes last week, so I have to go back to episode 9, which was the big Centauri episode, The Coming of Shadows, and a lot of comments here. Dale Sharp says, great reactions for a great episode. I love the acting with Jakar and Londo. I enjoyed seeing Sinclair again. Triple ditto on all of that. And Chris M, sorry. Certainly, this is certainly one of Babylon 5's Wham episodes and the culmination of the last 1 1/4 seasons. It makes dragging yourself over some of the hot coals of season 1 worth it. Smiley face. And he's also referencing the Centauri death dreams. He has to wonder what Turan's death dream was like. Was that the guy that got killed on the home planet? I think the Malachi Throne character, I believe was.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. My headcanon is of images from the attack on the Narn colony, followed by him on his deathbed being told about the start of the war, and crucially only hearing Londo's false statement giving consent to the war, possibly followed by images from the forthcoming conflict. So he's talking about the Emperor. This would make his desperation to make reparations to the Narn up to this point. And it also means that risking his health like this was his last Hail Mary attempt to find peace before the end, which is very tragic because that didn't happen for him at all. It seems the Centauri culture is absolutely influenced by their death dreams. Their constant drinking, gambling, risk-taking, and excess is probably how I'd behave if I knew the circumstances of my death, unless that death involves drinking, gambling, risk-taking, and excess. So yeah, that's a very good point. Like, how would you live your life if you knew how you were going to die? That really has to mess with your head. That's something that I don't think too many of us as humans would handle too well either. Khan says, great episode. I give it 10 Centauri wigs. I do disagree with some of what you said about Sheridan and Jakar's conversation at the beginning, and there's other comments here that kind of are on both sides of the fence on this, where I stated that Sinclair seemed to be rather uncaring about or unsympathetic about Jakar's situation with the attack on the colony. So that was good, and I'm glad to see that that's the kind of discussion we want, as long as we all keep it civil, which is great. And jumping down, so there's more about that, and this is interesting. Iffy FSX says because there was a comment about I don't know who said it, me or Karen or you, Jesse, that there's even a delay in communications between the Earth and the Moon. And then he says, but in this case, Stellarcom is an Earth Alliance interstellar communications network comprised of tachyon transceivers. So basically, that means instantaneous communications. I don't remember seeing that referenced anywhere. Maybe that comes later, or that's just something that was done in the background that was never explicitly stated in the show. Do you know about that, Jesse? No? Okay.
No, I don't.
All right. What else we got here? In signs and portents, Lady Ladira sees the destruction of Babylon 5, right, and tells Sinclair it's a possible future. So the Centauri do not believe that premonitions are fixed, but they do have a strong tendency to come true. So, and you don't necessarily understand the context of the time, which is a trope in a lot of stories where people have psychic abilities or whatnot, and they see something, but you misinterpret it because you don't have the proper context for it. So that's cool. And then one of the, bugbears that you have when you're doing a show like this is what's the treading the line of spoilers. And Dave gives a strong warning to anybody who hasn't seen it yet that you should be careful about this episode, because there's something that Jesse said that honestly I didn't even remember at the time. So I don't want to go in details because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. So and maybe you won't even notice it when it happens. But we understand that that's just one of the the balancing acts that it's hard to do, and inadvertently some things leak out. But it's that's just the risk that you take when you do this kind of show. And we apologize to anybody if they feel like we're spoiling things as we go along with these episode reviews, but I think we're doing a really good job of not tipping the hand on certain story points too soon. So enough said about that. And is there anything else here? Just more about how Sheridan acted in the start of that episode. So that will be that. And
so. Yeah,
okay,
I was going to say, I don't know, you may jump ahead this, but my favorite posting was the person that compared the number of minutes we talked about shadows and then Gropos, and they said, that's all I needed to know. Right? Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead, Lou. Yeah.
All right. So Gropos, what do we got here? Simon says, I seem to be responding to Karen's nits a lot lately. I thought the same thing for a long time, that all the character Gropos died next to each other. But recently rewatching, there are actually subtle fades between Dodger, Yang, and Large and Klyce. So they're not really it's really not that obvious though. So that's and then you responded to them, so that's good. And then there's a reference again to the season bloopers. You have to, if you want to find them, you can go through that post. And somebody says, Khan says, Coming of Shadows, episode length of our podcast, 1 hour, 14 minutes. Gropos, 32 minutes. Tells me all I need to know. Yes. And half of that was disgusting feedback. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It was.
It could have been better, but that doesn't mean it's filler. There are two different things. Also, the expectations hype is only damaging. Just enjoy the ride. And we will try to do that. Just enjoy the ride, but it's hard at times when you're in the moment. And Anelshock's talking about Garibaldi sleeping with Dodger, but he didn't feel comfortable doing it. So, yeah, I think we were all in agreement with that. Was kind of a weird thing, but
yeah, I had to comment on that one.
Yeah.
If he says, I wish I would tell you which one is Kefir's best episode, but that would be a spoiler. So that's good. And just more comments about the skippability of this episode. So that's good. So thanks again, everybody, for all your feedback. Muchly appreciated.
Absolutely. Good. I think that's it. Let's go around the table. How can someone reach you, Karen?
I am at Eldeveria on the Twitter machine, and my blog is alleystuff.com, which I really need to post on, but hey, There's a page, my landing page has a bunch of links. So if you visit that, you'll get some good information.
Good. And Lou?
You can find me on Lou's Reviews on YouTube, where we do the Babylon 5 podcast, the JKLM Media one-off series episodes. I do my writer interviews and Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzmo or S King Podcast.
And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me talk Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere, John Hyatt on Perfectly Good Podcast, and Bruce. And I am, as we're looking here, I am less than a month away from seeing Bruce live. So February, I'm going to end up either 3 or 4 shows. So
Oh my God.
I know.
I guess you can talk to him about appearing on your 1000th episode when you
Yes. I'm like, hey Bruce, hey, give me a minute. So
just throw a paper airplane up there.
Yeah, exactly, right. Just like, hey Bruce.
And that's Bruce Springsteen, not Bruce Boxleiter, just so you guys know.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my Bruce obsession. Yes. So we will be back next week to talk acts of sacrifice. And there is a storyline that you either will find stupider than anything or funny. So humor is subjective.
Okay.
So yes, we'll see. All right, for now, take care, be safe, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
So long, everybody. And scene.